Hi everyone, Lunch here, and we had some pretty big news out of Bandai this morning. They dropped the tournament promos for the new set, and I wanted to kind of go through because everyone's kind of freaking out about a cycle of Floodgate cards that we got. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on them. I'm here to tell you that I actually think they're pretty mid. We'll see what you think by the end of this video after you hear some of my arguments, but I think honestly people are freaking out over almost absolutely nothing, and a lot of these cards aren't even going to see that much play. But let's go through them quick, and then I will compare them to some of the other Floodgates people are comparing them to, some of the stuff we had in the past, and I'll tell you like the big differences on why they aren't nearly as big a deal as the old ones. The first one we're going to go around, the one that people are really talking about, is Trunks Counter, which is a 4-drop. You can play it for 1, obviously, if you have a yellow leader with 2 or more energy. It has Barrier. Permanent is markers on your units can't be removed by opponent's skills, and all cards in your hand can't be placed in order dropped by opponent's skills. So it stops discard and it stops it stops unison marker removal. It has Barrier and it is leader locked to yellow. So this isn't terrible, but the problem with this card is it doesn't actively make any impact on the game, so you're going to be playing when to put it in play. It's a 15k attacker, and you're not even going to want to attack with it because it'll just get killed because it's only 15k. And a lot of cards in green can already kill through Barrier. You've got Gohan 8-drop. The Trunks 8-drop is also seeing a lot of play right now because it gets through Indestructible. And all they really have to do is kill this card and then use their discard effects. So basically you're probably going to stop one instance of discard-ish. Like when the 8-drop attacks, sure, you might block that 1 card discard, but is it really worth the 1 energy of putting this into play? I don't really think so. If you're playing a deck that 100% absolutely needs its unison no matter what, maybe I could see it to prevent things like the Gohan SR, but I really think it's a lot more niche than people want it to be. It's also leader locked to yellow, so if you need that effect in another color, it just doesn't work. The next one is the Goku. It's a 5 cost. Once again, you can play it for 1 if your leader is green, you have 2 or more energy. This one you actually get a bonus on. Your opponent discards a card when you play it, which actually is a pretty big benefit because it's the only card that gets an actual effect when it comes into play, unlike the other 3. And then its permanent is your battle cards cannot be placed at the bottom of the deck by your opponent's skills. So I mean, there's a couple things that this helps with. It's mostly blue effects, but the problem with that is blue has just as many send to drop as it does put on bottom of the deck. So it's not even like it stops all of your opponent's removal effects. In addition, there is already a 5-drop green Goku that we can play for 1 that discards a card, except that one has critical plus an additional effect. So I could maybe see a deck where you're playing 4 of these and 4 of that Goku and you're just going full discard. But in that case, you're not even really using the Floodgate effect. So weakest Floodgate, but actually has an upside to playing it. So I don't know. I just don't see this one seeing a lot of play either. Zamasu Counter. This one's 4-drop. 1 cost put in play. Leader's gotta be blue, 2 or more energy. And the effect of this card is the power of your battle cards and unisons can't be reduced by your opponent's skills. Once again, color locked. I was surprised that this one doesn't have Indestructible. I guess that might be considered too good because Zamasu usually has Indestructible, so it's really weird that it's a Zamasu card. There actually might be some instance where it being Zamasu matters here because there's a couple Zamasu decks that are blue. The card itself, actually, I think is the strongest of the 4. I know a lot of people are really yelling about this Trunks card, but the fact of it is, when it comes to red, they don't really get other removal types. So this card's against green, but they can kill things through Barrier, so they can get rid of it. This card's against blue, but they have multiple ways to remove stuff, so, floodgating 1 of it isn't that big a deal. But red only really has minusing. They don't have a lot of KO effects, they don't have, banish effects or anything like that. So this actually has a decent chance of sticking around for a while. Now, there's still, overwhelms and things like that, and blue is kind of the weakest color right now, too, so, I mean, it's better than the other ones because it actually kind of fully floodgates and protects itself from red removal. Is it broken? I don't know. I mean, maybe in some sort of, like, I don't know. This is the closest one to being broken. There still isn't any impact when you play it. It's bigger. It's a 25k, so it's actually like a threatening number. But the fact that, like, all red removal it kind of hits makes it significantly better than the other ones. Demon God, Dabura, Counter. Are these all just called Counter? Jeez, okay, Bandai, come up with better names. Anyways, so this card is interesting because it's a Dark Overwhelm 4 blocker instead of paying 1 for it. So being free automatically makes it a lot better. That being said, it is a Overwhelm, so it'll burn your Overwhelm. Getting Wormhole's pretty easy nowadays, so that's not as big a deal. It's a blocker, which is also nice, 20k power. Skills on your battle cards can't be negated by your opponent's skills, and your cards can't be switched to rest mode by your opponent's skills. These are both okay. It's probably going to be meta dependent whether this card gets played or not. It gains a lot from the fact that it's a blocker, so it has another use. Plus, it doesn't cost any energy, so it's a lot easier to splash in. One other thing to notice is while it's Dark Overwhelm 4, it's not color locked like the other ones. So hypothetically, if you have enough black cards in your deck, you could play this with a colored leader. Switching your skills to rest mode is, like, not bad. There's a weird interaction with this, though, is if your opponent hits you with, like, a Frieza negate, you just can't attack anymore if this is out. So, like, can also be bad in certain situations. And there isn't a whole lot that really, like, I mean, it stops, like, I guess, like the Shenron card from standing back up after it kills something. This just isn't that impactful. Skills not being negated is nice, but again, in black, like, when does that ever really happen? Skill negation isn't really a big deal right now. These are both just kind of, like, not things that you really care about stopping. It's something that happens, like, once or twice a game. And for a Floodgate card, you really need it to be able to, like, really impact your opponent for it to be good. Some of the cards these people are comparing to is kind of surprising, too. Like, people are bringing up Mercenary Tau. And I'm going to explain the difference between a Floodgate and a Punish, because people call this a Floodgate. I mean, it kind of is depending on your definition, but this card punishes your opponent for doing something. And the reason that's so much better is because if your opponent incidentally has a discard effect, then they're gonna get hit by it, even if they, like, want to choose not to. Whereas the other effects we're getting just stop them from doing the thing. Let me go over the card real quick. That'll probably help me with what I'm describing. So, Mercenary Tau has Barrier. If your opponent's leader card is green or yellow, reduce the cost in your hand by 1, so it costs 1, kind of like the ones we have now. When a card in your hand is placed in your drop area by an opponent's skill, your opponent chooses 3 cards and sends them to their warp. So this doesn't stop your opponent for discarding, it just punishes them for doing so. So think about it in terms of a game. So your opponent plays a Gohan, you have Mercenary Tau out. They can't attack unless they want to warp 3 cards. There's no option to just attack and not discard. They attack, they force the discard, and they are punished for it. So it effectively prevents them from using any cards that have discard. Also, this card can be played after to punish. The big play with this was you would wait until your opponent topo negated you, which for those that don't know, topo negate says in order to attack you have to discard 2. So you'd wait until they negated and that effect was up, then you would play Tau, swing and make them discard 3. You can't do things like that with these new cards either because they have to be on the board in order for those effects to go through. Now, that being said, there is one big difference between back then and now, and the format is the thing that changed. We play best of 1 pre-side now, so these Floodgate cards are something you're going to have to be thinking about if you're playing the color they're good against. That being said, Trunks is okay, Zamasu is good into red, the other 2 are kind of not good at all, and I honestly don't even think Trunks is that good either. Maybe against specific decks that, like, just want to discard a whole bunch of cards and don't have removal, but that's just not Green's thing, so I really don't see that happening very much. Honestly, when it comes around to this, I really think that these cards are pretty mid, and people are freaking out over nothing. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong about cards before, but they just don't do enough, and they're the ones that you want to play, they're just too small. Like, A 15k for 1 energy has to do something really impactful in Dragon Ball nowadays for it like to be good enough to play. And this just doesn't do that. You're going to stop a discard or 2, which is not worth the 1 energy. And at worst, it's just going to sit there. They're not going to discard, or they're just going to immediately kill it and then discard anyways. It protects your unisons a little bit, but there aren't any decks in yellow that like really need that. You'd rather just play around it and like play smart to get through that. Goku discards a card. That's nice. That's the best part of the card. Zamasu is the one I think that actually has potential, just because of the fact that red, once again, red doesn't have removal other than minusing. So this card actually probably will see a decent amount of play if we ever get a blue deck that's worth playing in. And the black card, just the things it stops are so incidental. Like, who cares if, like, obviously getting one of your battle cards negated is not great, but it's not worth putting whole cards in your deck to stop, really. So what do you guys think? Am I crazy? Are these cards the best thing ever? Or do you also agree that these cards are just not that good? Like, I just have such a hard time finding situations where I want these cards that they're going to get put in and they're just not going to do anything. And they're going to be wasted space you could be using on better cards. Especially if you're, oh my god, if you're putting these in side deck, like, you could be putting so many better cards in your side deck than putting stuff like this in. Yeah, so am I wrong? Am I crazy? Yell at me in the comments. Tell me I'm absurd. These are the most broken things ever. We won't get to see their actual impact for a while because they're not legal for nationals. But, yeah, I'm interested in what you see. Please subscribe down below and have a nice afternoon.